What I am trying to say is that this attitude of thinking that someone else have to do it for you except yourself is a wrong attitude that then leads to this victimhood mentality that when something is not done we complain.
You have had an amazing journey, an amazing career. So, what is one thing that you feel that if you had to start your journey all over again, you would do differently? Hello, everyone. This is Shweta Dalmi, and welcome to another amazing episode of your favorite, the Climapreneur Show. Climapreneurs are entrepreneurs driving climate action. Today's guest, repeating his words, I would say, the journey to discover one's purpose starts from childhood and is almost never a bed of roses. But inherent in the challenges one may face lies the opportunity for impact. Today, climate action cannot be successfully driven without people of selfless and purposeful pursuits. Those were the words of Dr. Richard Munang. Dr. Richard Munang is currently the Africa's Regional Climate Change Coordinator at the United Nations Environment Programme. If you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for motivation, if you want to create climate solutions but do not know how, today's episode is for you. Do listen to today's episode, and I'm so sure that today's episode is going to motivate you to take your first step today. And if you're already on this journey, it's going to fill you with lots of motivation, lots of inspiration. After all, climate action is incomplete without passionate people like you. So, welcome to the Climapreneur Show, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And, as I also mentioned earlier, that having you on the show today, honestly, is like for me a dream come true. And it's literally a blessing because I have been following your work since the days of my masters. And one thing that kind of clicked with me was the way you interact about climate action, because that is a similar way I also approach the entire situation. So thank you. And so, Richard, are you ready to inspire the world today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sweta, for inviting me to the Climapreneur Show. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the great work that you are doing. Uh, I am very excited to be here today, and I look forward to uh, giving my thoughts and ideas on what I think we can collectively do together to not only drive climate action, but do so in a way that is inspiring and motivating to the citizenry of the entire world.
Okay, so we'll start with tell us a brief about yourself. Who is Richard Minang?
Yeah, very interesting question. I am Richard Munang, and I am the UNEP Regional Climate Change Coordinator. And my role is actually to support countries to integrate climate action into their national development plans, national development trajectories. But more importantly, in the course of doing that work, I have developed interest in looking at how can we engage the generation that is vibrant, that is energetic, and can be able to use their energy to bring climate action to scale. And these are the young people, the youth, and I have developed interest to engage them. And in the course of engaging them, but engage them in a way that they use what they have, which is their skills and talents, to be able to be not just part of the climate action, but to become the solutions providers in a way that actually generate opportunities and more so income opportunities that create jobs, that create wealth, and make society a better place. And I've actually done so through what I call innovative volunteerism, where I wrote a book about it, which is pretty much just leveraging what you have, but using also inspiration to make a difference.
Great. So, Richard, you talked about an African proverb, the world of elders do not lock all the doors. They leave the right doors open, and this right door is called purpose. So, would you like to elaborate on it? What does it mean and how?
Yeah, the reality is that everyone have got a story. What I mean by this is that we all born in different parts of the world, but we grow up with experiences. The experiences are pretty much common, not uniquely the same, but having a common denominator. Sometimes challenges, sometimes difficulties, but in every difficulty there is always an opportunity to emerge out of it stronger or to seize it to do something better. And purpose is what you do to touch other people's lives. So the purpose of life pretty much is to be useful. And that usefulness is to do something that touches others' lives. So each and every individual, regardless of difficulty, regardless of where you come from, can always get inspired, get humbled by that challenge, and be inspired by what can be done. And in doing so, not only to benefit his or herself, but to benefit the community, to benefit other people. And that purpose is what each and every one must be able to cultivate. And cultivating that purpose is what we need to be able to take climate action and bring it to scale. So, in my book, where I use that proverb, the well of the elder do not close all the doors, means that in every adversity, there are disguised opportunities. And with the changing climate today, it is a disguised opportunity for us to do things differently and to seize the opportunities that sometimes are disguised as challenges, but they're actually opportunities. And unless we do it using what we have, which is ourselves, then we might end up not actually achieving what we have intended to achieve, because we have been thinking that we are having challenges, that we are having difficulties, that we come from poor homes, but forgetting to know that we must use what we have. Because, as I said to you last time, you can only get what you want to get by using what you have. You can only get what you don't have by using what you have. And by doing that, you cannot do it only to benefit yourself. You must do it to solve a bigger problem that goes beyond yourself, that goes beyond your family, that even goes beyond your village. And in this case, climate change is a very practical example.
So Richard, like I read it somewhere long time ago. Like you mentioned somewhere that like today we have got unemployment. Today we have got all these problems. Like I personally believe in this fact a lot, and I have been talking to people about this thing only. So like when we have so many problems today, when we have unemployment, so like we need to create solutions. We have things that we could do, so why are not we working on things that we need to do? And in that case, unemployment could also be solved. We could be creating solutions, we could be adding meaning to your life. So what do you think is stopping people to be on that path?
Yeah, exactly. What is actually stopping people is that we have not been made to know that we are the ones we need. We've been made to think that someone else have to do and solve the problems that we face, rather than making us to see ourselves as solutions. And of course, others can facilitate the process, but we must be able to take the lead as individuals on this planet Earth, regardless of which planet or country in which everyone is in. That is something that is actually missing. It is a puzzle in an equation that is missing, where we collectively have to become the solution providers, to self believe that we can do it. And as a result of self believing, we will make an effort and we will move the needle in the right direction. That absence of self belief and of self acceptance that we are the ones we need to be able to start seeing challenges as disguised opportunities is what have stifled and then created an atmosphere of blame game and complaining all the time. And when you ask those who complain, what are they doing? You never get an answer. It's always someone to do it. And a practical example is yourself. You created Climapreneur Solutions, I mean Climapreneur Show here, and then the Climapreneur enterprise that you have created, and you're engaging young people. You're engaging even me. Yeah, I'm here today because of you creating this platform. If you didn't create it, I wouldn't be here. That then means that you are contributing your own quarter of solutions to be able to engage and change the narrative and inspire people through storytelling as well. People bringing different ideas. Imagine if the over 7.2 billion citizens of the world were doing the same thing. Wouldn't we be solving all the challenges that we have? So the point is that people have not understood that their purpose of existence on this planet Earth is to be useful. And the only way you can be useful is to become a solution provider, not a complainer in chief, not a blame game person, but somebody who can lead. Because leadership, sometimes people think that leadership is about political positions. No, that's not what leadership is about. Leadership is personal responsibility. And the first person to lead is yourself. And that personal responsibility must be to take an action in solving problems, not causing problems, in providing and putting in place actions that can touch other people's lives, not inflict pain in those people. And that is what we must all do. So, what have made people not to become purposeful is I call it a false narrative. It's a false narrative that someone somewhere have to do it for me, rather than me doing it and getting supported in the process. They wait for someone to do it for them as they sit on the higher horse and complain. And I think that is a terrible attitude that we must continuously debunk it, because it's a false narrative that has not helped the world, and we must be able to ensure that we change that narrative. And the youth unemployment is visible, I believe, everywhere across, especially in developing countries. If you take the case of Africa today, 12 million, over 12 million youth are graduating into the labor market, and they're competing only with 3 million jobs. That then means that each and every month, 1 million jobs are supposed to be created. But where will those jobs come from? The reality is that the government cannot create all the jobs for the unemployed youth anywhere in the world. Well, the role of government is to create an enabling environment for people to develop and devise their own enterprises. And therefore, if we don't inspire young people or make them to self-believe and find their purpose to start creating their own enterprises in turning challenges to opportunities, we might never be able to have a world in which there is equity, a world in which there are jobs for everybody, decent jobs. But climate change provides that opportunity for us to do so. And I think Climapreneur is actually going in that direction, as well as other youth actions across the world that are doing the same almost.
You're actually right on this, and I would like to ask you that, why do you think that climate action cannot be successfully driven without people of selfless and purposeful pursuits?
The reality is that if you look at the change, the climate change challenge is a challenge of monumental proportions. It's too big to be handled by just a few. It's too big a challenge that we are already seeing the impacts, whether it is floods displacing millions of people, or droughts that are causing crop failure and plunging people into hunger and food insecurity, or it is cyclones and, and hurricanes. These are just the tip of the iceberg of what we know will come if the world continuously moves towards this path of dangerous increases in temperatures, as report after report shows. Then the point then comes, if we are looking at resources in terms of financial resources, these resources keep getting skyrocketed. As we're speaking today, developing countries need 70 billion US dollars each and every year to implement climate actions, but the money is not there. The money that is coming is not enough. But then the assumption is also that what if this money was to come every year? Do we have the people to be able to leverage those resources and put in place the requisite actions to build climate resilience? Your guess is as good as mine. We do not have them. And how do we then get them? The only answer is when people self-believe and start to say, I need to retool my skill. I need to do something to build my skill, not only waiting to get resources in terms of money to do it. I have to do something because I have to be useful. And that when I contribute my own quota in the community and another person contributes, we end up solving a problem. That selflessness is not there. That kindness is not there. And unless we become kind and selfless, then we might not be able, because even when the resources are there, we will not even have the people who must have voluntarily volunteered themselves to learn a skill that is necessary to just needing a little bit of facilitation to do something. But when that facilitation is there and you don't have the skill, it means nothing will happen. It therefore means unless people become selfless, unless people become purposeful, we might never be able to solve this monumental challenge of climate change. And the best way to do so now is to start inspiring people, because we have a big inspiration gap. We have a big passion gap. And I always say this, if you have passionless people and you give them resources, nothing will ever be achieved. If you have one passionate and dedicated human being, That one passionate and dedicated human being can do what 27 million people can never do.
And like sort of adding to your point, I would say that the beauty is climate action today. Like, the solutions for climate action is transdisciplinary. Like, I know a friend of mine, he does comedy. So he engages public with climate change comedy. And, like there are different people, someone doing climate action and with graphics, music, and in all different fields. So like you don't have to be okay, I need to be a scientist, or I need to, someone from the tech background to be a solution bearer. You can create solutions in different arenas, and that's the beauty of climate action, like the way I see it.
Absolutely, and you've summarized it so nicely.
So my next question to you would be, Richard, like, one of my absolute favorite quotes of yours and something that I personally believe in is, we don't need dollars or magic to transfer, rather we need logic, reason, and self-belief. But most importantly, we need the change of mindset to do right and steer off the victimhood mentality and the dependent syndrome. So Richard, what's your take on it?
Very important quote that I strongly believe in it. And that quote, to break it down for everybody to understand who is listening to this Climapreneur show is, if you don't believe that you are what you need, you will always expect someone else to do it for you. And that someone else will never do it. So you will end up where you are. And as a result of that mentality of thinking someone is supposed to do something, it creates an entitlement that if something is not done, even when there is waste litter in front of people's homes, they're not going to pick it up because someone else have to come and pick it up. Even when in homes you see people eat, they throw plates in the sink with no one even caring to clean those plates, thinking that someone else have to do it. What I am trying to say is that this attitude of thinking that someone else have to do it for you except yourself is a wrong attitude that then leads to this victimhood mentality, that when something is not done we complain rather than figuring out how to do something, we complain. And when you look at the challenges that they are called the multifaceted challenges, whether you're talking food insecurity, whether you're talking youth unemployment, then climate change now, which is the elephant in the room that is only worsening these already existing challenges. And now we'll be talking at the time with COVID-19. All these challenges put together are actually plunging millions of people into suffering. But when you look at a way to address these challenges, it doesn't need complexity. It needs logic. And what is logic here? It needs simple actions that can be undertaken by you and me, ordinary citizens, even in their capacity of just ordinary citizens. Personal individual can take actions. A simple action like turning waste to briquettes to replace charcoal doesn't need any magic. A simple action like using local material to fabricate a solar dryer doesn't need any magic. A simple action like using waste, whether it is cassava waste or groundnut waste, groundnut peeling, to turn to biofertilizer to help a farmer not use chemicalized fertilizer but use biofertilizer to keep the soil intact and increase her crop growth, doesn't need any magic. But sometimes we ignore these realities and these simple approaches that we can engage people to be part of without necessarily having to have money to start, but just availing themselves to learn a skill. Just going to the internet sometimes to, instead of doing social media gossip, they look up for a YouTube on how to turn waste to briquettes and learn. But we ignore these things. And that is why I say that we do not need logic. I mean, we do not need magic. We need logic. We do not need magic. We need logic and reason, not witchcraft. And the reason for that is that sometimes we complicate solutions, simple solutions that could have been taken, and more of such taken out of bigger. We start talking only big things that we might never do. I am in no way trying to say that big ideas are not needed, but I am saying, why don't we talk big ideas as we start small at the same time? Because if you engage young people as I do and you are doing, they will never have the money to set up a heavy solar power plants. Government can do that and private investment can do that. But they can start with simple climate action, clean energy solutions like turning waste to briquettes. That's a clean energy solution that will save a mother. That will save a mother from depending on charcoal and choking her chest with smoke. And that will bring not just an opportunity for the youth to be creating jobs for themselves, but it will be solving a community problem. And this is the kind of thinking, and that as a result of that, data coming out of that can help inform government policy. And government can incentivize enterprises that are dealing with such initiatives and even give tax rebates to such. That way, it's simple logic and reason that is creating a huge impact and bringing not only climate action solutions to scale, but also creating wealth in communities. And this is the kind of thing that we need to do. Instead of sitting and complaining, we need to now start looking at what can I do with what I have, which is what you have is yourself. But you must be able to avail yourself. And I always say that your biggest ability is your availability. If you do not avail yourself, you will never be able to learn new skills. You will miss opportunities. And if you always wait to get what you think you need to have before you start, you will never get what you think you need to have before you start, and you will stay in the same place. So, logic, reason is what we need. If not, we will end up complaining and only blame others and play the victimhood card, and that never ever brings any solution to anything, and that never brings progress.
Actually, you're like saying so true, because then one thing I would also add to this is that, creating climate action solutions is also like sort of connecting to your inner self, because when you connect to your inner self, you become more conscious and you think with the big picture. And when, if say, like sometimes, because it's natural, like I would say to all the people out there, when you are doing something, not everyone will see it in a positive way, but we need to shield our, we don't have to take everyone's negative energy and just stop doing it. We should be just trusting our positive energy and keep going on and going on. Because when I talk to a lot of people just say that, okay, I can create solution, but what about money? How will the money come in? So we need to sometime just have a bigger picture, I would say, in front of us.
Absolutely, and you've touched a very important point. The thinking that money is an end has actually disempowered and demoralized a lot of people not ever to start unless they get the money. And then they end up not having the money. And the problems keep piling up and nothing changes. And the empty talk of I want to have money before I start continues and nothing changes. But the narrative needs to change from that to be money is needed, yes. But money for what? And if you have the money without having the skill to do it, will the money change anything? No. So money is not an end. Money is part of a means. And it is actually a minute part of a means because, firstly, you must be able to develop what I call an unborrowed vision. And what an unborrowed vision simply means is where do you want to go with your passion? Because you must become passionate about what you love to do. And everybody, if you ask, everybody loves to do something, whether it is design and fashion or it is engaging in doing something that can be able to uh, progress the person even as an individual. People are passionate about music, they're passionate about dancing, they're passionate about reading. If you identify your passion, which everyone do have a passion, how do you then leverage that passion to see through the lens of climate change? If it is passion in dancing, how do you dance in communicating climate action solutions to people through music or through dancing? If it is communication or a TV show like your show here, how do you use it to create awareness on solutions that do exist out there that people can take to advance climate action and create opportunities for themselves? If it is teaching, how do you ensure that every subject you teach, you integrate the logic of climate change from a solutions perspective and from an enterprising dimension so that the very students and kids you are teaching get out of school already prepared and knowing that I will not be a job seeker, I will be a job creator. And therefore, it means that each and every one of us using our passions and tying it to an unborrowed vision of your personal way to move forward and touch others' life, where you want to go. And then now with your purpose, of going to where you want to go to touch people's lives with what you do. That is what will keep you awake, and that is the fuel. I call passion is the new currency of now. It is the fuel that drives an individual. And with that passion, no matter how much amount of money you get, you will never do anything. The money will finish. But with passion, when the money finishes, you get sustained because that fuel is there. And I always use this example. What if you have a car and you don't have fuel in it? It will never move. The only fuel that drives a human being is passion. Passion for what? To solve problems. To solve problems for what? To touch people's lives. That's purpose. And when you follow that, and you know that I in this time I have to do this to be able to touch this number of lives. That is your vision. But it is your unborrowed vision because it is what is you personally do, not necessarily doing experimental vision of someone else, but doing what you will do it today, you will do it tomorrow with or without money, and do it because it is the right thing to do. That's why I call it an unborrowed vision, not an experimental left and right vision where 2 3 minutes it gets disappeared and you ask the person, what were you doing? He said, leave that thing, I'm not going to do it again. That is not a vision. A vision is where you want to go, and that vision must be fueled with your own passion, and it must be a purposeful vision. And one doesn't need an institution, one doesn't need to belong to an organization. And that is the biggest problem that I really think that our listeners need to understand. There is this misnomer and representation of reality that if you don't belong to an institution, if you don't have a big job, you cannot play a role in society. That's not true. And that's a false narrative. And we have to debunk that. An individual, regardless of where you are, have the power within him or her to bring change in his or her own way wherever she is. And that is called influence. We have influence among our peers, regardless of whether it is even in our homes or it doesn't matter. And that influence is currently most of the time being misused by complaining, sitting, doing nothing, and complaining. People don't understand that positive energy actually inspires. And you might never know the number of people you are inspiring. Like you were just telling me today that I inspired you. I didn't know, but you are telling me. Positive energy inspire, and when you inspire people, that's you are influencing them. So when people spend time complaining, they're influencing others negatively. But when they spend time discussing solutions, I am not trying to say that if there is a problem, people should not talk. But you can talk about the problem from an inspirational perspective, like climate change we're talking about. We're not saying, oh no, the world is coming to an end because we are not doing anything. No, we're saying yes. The reality is that if we don't do something, we're going to see worse than what we're seeing today. Crop failure, sea level rise, cyclones and hurricanes. But at the same time, we're saying we have an opportunity to see this through and through the lens of our individual action combined with collective government action and non-state actors and everybody. And if we do what we must do by seeing this through the opportunity lens, we can rebuild our economies. We can put people back to work. And as a result of doing that, lower emissions and put our planet on a pathway for prosperity for everybody. That is the kind of inspiration, turning challenges to opportunities, seeing problems as opportunities, and inspiring people to act to turn those problems into opportunities. That is what we need. And if we don't cultivate that attitude and only go down this pathway of money, 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 as if money itself is a solution, then we will never do anything. People are the biggest sovereign capital that outweighs money. And more importantly, skilled people, because a skillful person is 15 times the value of natural capital and 4 times the value of produced capital. What does that mean? One skilled person is more important than the minerals that we have underneath there combined.
Like honestly, it's like I truly believe in that perspective. And like when I started, my father just told me one thing, that like a lot of people create things. Anyone can create something by investing millions of dollars, but if you could create something by not investing millions of dollars, then that would be something that you're creating. And I think when you work on, I would say, limited resources, it gives you the opportunity to think out of the box. For example, like in my case, like we are working on some limited resources, so we think out of the box. We think, like, how to utilize those resources in a different manner. Because sometimes, like, I have a lot, like, talk to a lot of people. Like today, say digital marketing, Instagram ads, Facebook ads, this is very common. So if you have money, you will definitely go for the default options, I would say. But having limited money or limited resources in general pushes you to think out of the box, and I think that is where the magic happens. So yes, like, my message to the listeners will also be that do not take that, limited resources as a limitation. It is something that could push you to think out of the box, and life exists after the comfort zone. So, Richard, my final two questions to you would be, like, you have had an amazing journey, an amazing career, inspiring a lot of people around the world. So, what is one thing that you feel that if you had to start your journey all over again, you would do differently?
Wow, what an amazing question. If I was to start my journey again, what I would do will not necessarily be that different from what I am doing today. Because let me just put it in perspective. I grew up, I was born in the northwestern part of Cameroon, and I grew up in a poor home. Growing up in a poor home is not an issue. Growing up, people grow up in poor homes. Being poor is not a crime. And actually, poverty or being poor is not an indictment. It is not punishment, and it is not anything that is permanent. And what I learned in the course of me growing up was in a village was that a child. There's a proverb that a child is everyone's child in a community, and that it takes a village to raise a child. And we were taught lessons of humility and respect, and we're taught lessons of kindness, and that kindness and selflessness is not weakness, it's actually strength. And that when you combine strength and empathy, you can transform societies. And what I learned all through that process is that no matter how educated you are, no matter how privileged you are to reach high levels, one thing that never ever should change is how empathetic you must always be, how kind and selfless you must always be. But in the course of my career till date, what I have noticed that makes a big difference, which I will still do the same, is that it is people that drive development. People drive development for themselves, and our role is to facilitate them. And one of the biggest facilitation is to inspire them. And when you inspire people, and you genuinely inspire them to self believe and become the solution, whatever thing you stand for will be brought to scale, not by you